Chairman. I'd like to introduce, before we begin, the remainder of the board. If you'll please stand up. Lynn Davidson, Dave Dayton, Flo Lippitz, Galen Barnes, Lisa Lance, John Lingus, and our Executive Committee of Secretary Frank Iarasi, Treasurer Dave Seymour, and Vice Chairman Steve Hokanson. There's no need to introduce Mr. Butler, who is very much an integral part of the group. So, this is a meeting, as I said, that culminates of 2 years of diligent work. It is not a discussion of the operations of the club, although I think it's important, based on some of the questions and comments we've had, to kind of do a quick review on some subjects that seem to be important to most members. Just so you know, this morning we posted a series of financial data on the website that people have been asking for. The current 2014 audit, with comments from our Treasurer David Seymour, because it's not the easiest type of audit to understand, so he's given all of us some crib notes for that. We have the current operating budget, the current first quarter performance, which is from October, November, December, and associated with that posting is a series of questions and answers that board member John Lingus interviewed Jim, trying to help us and you understand some of the data in that performance, as well as a balance sheet. So let me go through some of the key membership data that people find important. The first quarter sales of memberships, we sold 19 golf, 4 resident golf, 10 resident sport, and 1 non-resident sport. It was a sensational first quarter. Granted that part of the idea that we reduced equity beginning January 1st was an inspiration for many members to join, but it was also a sensational year, and I think things are continuing to show enthusiasm. Resignations is a subject that many people ask and question about. You can see that the resignation list that we got in the first quarter, members who resigned after the dues went out, was pretty much similar to what it had been in the past. We normally calculate on a normal basis, it's been true year after year, that we normally get a resignation of residents of about 4% a year, and typically non-residents at about 10% a year. So we're pretty much on that track. There's no balloon, there's no run for the door in resignations. So what does that do for the wait list? Always a concern. You can see the wait list has not changed that much either. Now, part of it has to do with the velocity of new memberships but the wait list is pretty much the same. The non-residents actually less than last year. So the impact is pretty stable. So if you look at our total membership today, January 1st, you'll see 534 resident golf, 202 non-resident golf, for a total of 736 golf members. Now that number does not relate to the 850 at all, because in essence we've actually sold 772 golf memberships, but you need to take out of that the resigned memberships to get to the golf paying dues members who are competing for tee times. So that's a pretty good number, and it's an improvement, and we're very happy with that. Now let's talk about the termination of the turnover agreement, which we announced to you not too long ago. As you recall, the board was able to control the remaining 88 golf memberships and 88 sport memberships to the cap of 850 and 400. 88 of each were remaining, which we took control of from Halstead. And we agreed to pay them $7.5 million for the golf memberships, $300,000 for the sport memberships. Our obligation was to pay them quarterly over 4 years, or divide the 7,550 by 16. And the sport dues, the 300 by 4, because we need to pay them $75,000 per year. There's no interest, And the first payment was due this past January. So if you look at our obligation for our first fiscal year was January 1st, we were obligated to pay them a minimum of $546,875. The succeeding quarters, an additional $471, $471, $471. So our annual obligation, first year obligation to them was $1,962,500. It's important to note that that is not debt. We pay for those memberships. We pay Halstead into an escrow account based on the memberships we sell, when we sell them. We do not go into debt. Yes, we have a line of credit if by chance we'd ever have to not make that obligation. The board is confident that we can continue to make that obligation, evidenced by our first quarter payment. We paid Halstead $1,620,000 January 1st. And that's from the sale of memberships in the first quarter. So you can see we've actually honored our obligation almost for the first 3 quarters, almost for the full year. And we've still got 9 months to go of selling memberships. We are very confident that what we negotiated is a very easy thing to do as we continue to sell memberships. And we think there's no debt, no obligation for a line of credit. All right, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to give you an overview of what we have been developing for the last 2 years, an overview that you'll see. When you leave today, you'll get a brochure like this, which gives you all the data, all the pictures, all the numbers that you can take home at your leisure and look at. There'll be a breakout session immediately after the meeting. If we go out to the porte-cochere, all the visuals will be up for you to look at. There'll be board members there to answer questions, to help you understand, if you don't hear it in the meeting, all the details. We're going to schedule next until February 3rd. We'll be scheduling question and answer sessions in the foyer with all the visuals. Board members will be there to answer your questions. We'll post the times that they're available. So if you want to come back and say, I just looked at the brochure and I don't quite understand it, can you help me understand it? Board members will be there to help you answer those questions. And finally, Jack Black Productions is recording this session. It will be on the website tomorrow in its entirety. So if you want to review it, or you have friends who weren't able to be here, you can refer them to the website, and they'll get the same data that you got. Okay, let's talk about the way we've tried to organize the meeting to meet your needs. We've done it in a way that we think that you have a lot of questions, so let's try to organize the meeting based on what we think your questions are. The first question is, why is the board proposing these improvements now? Secondly, how did the board develop these recommendations? And actually, here's what you really want to see. What is the board actually proposing? But then importantly, when would the projects be completed? How would we pay for these recommendations that the board is making? What's the voting member process? And finally, we will have time for comments and questions. Now I want to talk about why we're proposing the improvements now. Now a lot of you have read our emails, attended our meetings. This may be a little bit old hat to you, but I think it's important that we go through and help you understand why we got to the point we are, because I think it's critical for the foundation of the presentation. First, we're talking about demand. I don't know if you realize that the baby boomers have taken over and they are looking for golf clubs and country clubs. There's across the country, not just in Naples, across the country, 40% of the clubs are making improvements to try to deal with new members who are looking for, in many times, a little bit different club than they've had in the past. People are demanding changes to what they expect. Just a side note, I was talking to Kitsy yesterday. She said, I have 3 prospective members who are waiting to join the club if the member approve this capital program. These are the kind of people who are saying, I want a different club than I've seen before. Competition. There's 150 golf clubs in Collier and Lee County. There are 7 golf clubs surrounding Gray Oaks. There are people who are looking for country clubs, golf clubs, both as a residential member and as a member from the beach or Old Naples who are saying, I want a country club home, and they're looking for some place to go. And our competition understands that too, because they're making those investments to try to adapt their club to the needs and wants of this new membership. Here's a list of what we reported in terms of capital projects of other clubs, most of them in this area, a few on the other coast, Mirasol, Ibis Coast, Addison Reserve, which we visited, that have also made similar investments. They're very much like Gray Oaks in terms of its membership and size. It was interesting that if you saw the paper today, Talus Park just announced a $25,000 addition for their fitness center. And so everyone's making changes to what they want to propose to members, so there is competition. Why now? Membership value. This is probably the most critical thing we have going for us. All of us have about $140 million worth of equity in this club. We are all the members. We have the equity. We got to make sure that we preserve that equity. And part of it is the fact that we want to make sure that people who are prospective members are willing to pay $150,000 or $175,000 to come and take our place if and when we need it. We want to preserve that 90 or 80 or now new 70% equity. That value is critical, and the way we preserve that equity, that membership value, is making this place the best that it can be. Property value. I don't know if you realize that this plant that we have here is a $100 million plant in terms of existing facilities. Facilities that are 22 years old. Facilities that probably need some work that we have been putting off, that other clubs are also investing in. That's something that we need to continue to invest in the property value, not to speak of the value that this club brings to the $2 billion real estate that surrounds this country club. Membership lifestyle. That's why we joined. That's what we expect. That's what we're looking for. This is what we hope to enjoy from the club, and we have to make sure that we provide you with those anticipated lifestyle amenities that are important. And I can't help but say enough, that's what new members are looking for. What kind of lifestyle can I possibly have if I come and join Gray Oaks? Fiduciary responsibility, I think this is the biggest point of the board. They're saying, you elected us to make sure that the long-term vitality and strength of this club exists. That's why we're coming to you today and saying, that's our obligation. We need to come to you and with a stable financial plan that says this is what we need to do. That's why we think we're proposing these recommendations now. So how do we get to the recommendations? You've seen and heard this before, but let me briefly go through it again. We started with the industry. We are sources in a lot of industry sources, McMahon Trends, McGladrey benchmarking, asking them what's going on. What are clubs around the country doing? What do they find is important? What do they find critical? What should we consider? First basis of input. We then visited a lot of clubs, and we've told you this before. We went around over the last couple of years visiting clubs that are doing projects like we're talking about. And I got to tell you, a lot of them preceded us in doing them. So we spent some time, we worked with the general manager, we talked to board members, we talked to the board members themselves and said, what did you do? Here's the places we visited. You'll see some East Coast where they really made some significant improvements, but we also visited clubs around here that you're totally familiar with. We went to see different things. When we go to the Port Royal Club, we went to look at their fitness center. Tremendous improvement. A lot of clubs did different things, but the board wanted to see what are people doing, what was their experience, and what was member reaction. Very important input. Staff evaluations. As we go through this and we look at it and say, well, there's a lot of things people are doing. What is a staff? You're the one that's going to have to manage it. You're the ones that are going to have to implement it. What are your thoughts? Well, they came back and said there's a lot of deficiencies, there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of things members tell me that we need. That all goes into the input. We did a member survey. We sent out a survey. We got 65% of you responding back. The biggest survey response we've ever had. that survey, we had employed some PhDs to help us structure the questions so they're meaningful, so we know what it is you're saying. It was a big insight in terms of what you said was important to you. We did focus groups. We did 4 different focus groups featuring the 4 specific areas that came out of the survey that were important. Golf, tennis, fitness, and dining. 14 groups, invited anybody that wanted to come. Let your hair down, let us know what you think. Give us some idea in terms of what the response to the survey was. Did it validate what you said? Can you give us a little more color to some of the answers? Very important in terms of what we found. We did new member interviews, and this may have been the most revealing, because we sit with new members who just came in and said, well, what was the basis of your decision? Why did you come to Gray Oaks? Why did you make the decision to come here? And what are some of the things that, as you looked around to other clubs, what did you find kind of nice, maybe better, different? Very insightful in terms of the future, because those are the people who are going to replace a lot of us in the future. So what were the main feedback from all of this work? There are 4 areas that popped up. We forced you to list the most important things. We had 39 amenities, which we asked you to rank and rate. You force-fed it, and you said, what are the 4 that are most important? 100% of you listed at least one of these 4 items. The dining, tennis, fitness, and golf. Those are the things that came back to the board that said, this is what's important. And I got to tell you, when we go through the survey, we talk to the other clubs, 2 of those are the most critical in the industry, 2 are most critical in all the other competitors, and that is casual dining destinations and improved fitness. And that's what you said. We need a casual dining opportunity other than the little patio grill that we have. We need something bigger and broader. Everyone seems to want that, #1 on their list. The tennis people are, I always appreciate them because they tell you what it is, I'll tell you. And they're very vocal, and they're exactly right. They say, hey, you guys improved that locker room over there for the golf guys. What about the tennis? Tennis is important to a lot of new members, and we who are here. The tennis facilities, pro shop, locker room, it should be at least comparable to what the golf members have. And we agreed. More function space. Interesting thing that we are, if there's any area that has had tremendous growth from you, it's the fitness area. If you go there for training, if the floor space is limited, if you're going to a class where there's Zumba or Pilates or the bikes, you're in a little place that you got to keep rotating. There's not enough space to meet the current needs of you, but it doesn't provide enough room for the future in terms of fitness. It's a critical area improvement and expansion. And finally, golf. There's always been a tremendous support for our golf. We have 3 great golf courses. David Piggle does a great job in maintaining those golf courses. There's not a lot to complain about in terms of the golf courses, but they're saying your feedback was, we need a little bit more training. There's a lot of clubs that have a lot of training facilities, a lot more practice facilities. We think that's a major improvement in terms of what we need at the club. What did we do then? We took all this information and we went to what I'll call the professionals to try to translate what you said and what we heard. These people are listed in the book that I gave you with all their credentials. These are people that the board had interviewed and decided and looked at other professionals as well, decided on these professionals to help us design the program that we think you ask for and that meets your needs. So what's the board proposing? I'm going to turn it over now to Vice Chairman Steve Hokanson, who's also the chairman of the Capital Project Committee. If you don't know, Steve's been a member for 20 years. He actually runs a management company, a real estate development, commercial building company, is built in Gray Oaks, built in Naples, built the Anthrax building, so he's very familiar. We're lucky to have Steve as a member of the board, and we're lucky to have Steve as chairman of this project. So Steve?
Let me see if I can go over here and stand out of the way so you all can see the screens. I think we've got a couple other pointers on the other side. So what is the board proposing? Oops, pushed too quick. This is a photograph or aerial photograph of the existing club. We have not, other than the Pro Shop wing, which was done 2 years ago, improved any of the facilities on campus since 2000. In 2000, the main dining room was added to the existing clubhouse, but the existing bar dining area, the tennis facilities, the pool, and the patio grill were all original 1992 improvements. So where do we go first? First, and of primary importance, are kitchens. This is the light yellow is the existing kitchen in the east clubhouse. The darker yellow is an area, this is the main entrance into the bar area, and this doorway goes into Kitsy's office. So what we took in the need here in this facility is to be able to run 350 or 400 person event in this dining room and simultaneously do 200 to 225 a la carte dinners in the grill room at the same time. Our dining hours typically for Gray Oaks residents are from 6:30 to 8. We get one turn, and our kitchen that we have now is the original 1992 kitchen. Just can't do it. So we took Clevenger, Frable, and LaValle, which is a firm in New Jersey, along with all of our culinary staff here, and went through the whole design process in order to reconfigure a kitchen that can produce meals at that level. The West Kitchen over in the West Clubhouse over in the estuary has got a similar problem. This is the clubhouse itself. And this is the main entrance into the clubhouse. The kitchen at the estuary was designed to be a luncheon kitchen. It was never designed to deliver dinners or white linen tablecloth. Yet every time we do one over there, we're sold out. In order to revamp the kitchen, we had to add a piece to the building and expand the kitchen. And at the same time, the existing Pro Shop would be converted into a bar and grill. By doing that, we can add about 20 more tabletops in the existing dining room. The outside area stays the same. But we also wanted to pay particular attention to this existing terrace at this end of the structure. It's got a great view, maybe the best view in Gray Oaks. And we're proposing to put a service bar here that would take care of this area, add soft seating, and add a covering to it so that it's got a structure that will shade for sun or inclement weather. The lower level, this is the area again that's added for the kitchen. The men's and ladies' locker rooms don't change very much. They get updated. This is the area where the ice machine currently is located. Capture that hallway and have a 450 to 500 square foot Pro Shop where we can sell balls and gloves, have a posting machine and a place for the golf staff to go. We also get an opportunity to put an air-conditioned break room for our employees over on the estuary side because we've never had that opportunity before. This is a rendering of the roof structure that would be added over to the estuary. It has louvers up in the ceiling area that can be changed electronically as the sun drifts from one side to the other. And if it rains, I'm told that they can be closed, and it is a watertight ceiling, but it allows ceiling fans, misters, lights. It really makes that area usable. There's about 50 seats out there. It's currently not used at all because of the weather. So we come back to the East Campus. So we've got 2 kitchens that we need to work with. The area for casual dining we focused on was the area adjacent to the delivery area, main delivery area to the clubhouse. This is the tennis pro shop and restrooms that share with the pool and the patio. So the proposed casual dining facility fits right into this area. We'll go through it in detail in just a minute. The piece that's important while we're talking about kitchens is this loading dock area. By doing this kitchen here that will both serve the pool cafe, but it also allows us to do a commissary kitchen at the same time. We've got 3 food venues. As deliveries come in, we can do both a bake shop and soup prep, stocks, all that kind of thing here in the kitchen. By doing that, it also gives us a morning venue, because Chef Chris says that we'll be having people come in at 5:30 in the morning. So as we go through and talk about the outside venues here, there'll be a place where you can get a cup of coffee or have breakfast in the morning. The issue with this, though, is it takes 2 tennis courts and all this out of play. So the new tennis facility building is built right ahead. There's a new pro shop and new locker rooms that are specifically for tennis. They will share at the very end of the building is a bathhouse for the pool. And we will add 2 additional tennis courts for a total of 8, at least in the first run. We'll get into timing in a minute. Oops. Yeah. At this point, I'd like to introduce Dave Humphrey, who's the principal architect that we've been working with. Dave's going to come and walk you completely through the club cafe, the swimming pool area, and the tennis facility. David?
Let's watch.
Were you? Which screen were you?
Over here, over here. Yes. Hi there. How are you? Welcome, everybody. Big crowd. We've been very fortunate over the years to have completed over 65 of these master plan facility layouts throughout South Florida. And I have to tell you, this committee, the Capital Improvement Committee, as well as the board, has been one of the most insightful, vision-seeking, option-driving groups that I've ever worked with. You need to understand that these shepherds are your peers and your members, and I got to tell you, they have been wonderful to work with. So just know this as we go through these. They have driven options, not just finding solutions that are good for today, but good for the future. And they're also driving a solution that is to be done once. So that's a very hard a premise to design by, but it has been wonderful, and they've been wonderful, so you need to know that. So I say that about every board, but I really mean it with these guys. Coming from a completely unbiased source. I had a professor walked in class one day, had half a glass of water, and I thought it was going to be one of these half full, half empty things. And he said, who can tell me what this glass weighs? Well, you had the left-brainers saying, well, let's see, we have 2.5 inches times pi times the height, that's 3.4 pounds. And then you had the right-brainers saying, well, if you look at it from this angle, it really looks like there's nothing in there. So professor said, okay, the answer to this is it depends on how long you have to hold it. Okay? If it's a full glass, you can hold it for a second, it's not a problem. If you hold it for a couple hours, it becomes a little bit more of a problem. If you hold it all day, you may have to get into into that rotator cuff surgery thing. So if you apply that analogy to the facilities that you have here, it's only a matter of time before you start to suffer. You can do anything for a period of time, and your general manager and his management can pull rabbits out of a hat many times, but it's only a matter of time before the demand and the competition start to show a suffering of the facilities. So hopefully as we walk through this, you'll understand that we've tried to lift your burden of that glass of water. So as we get into the design of this thing, we kind of look at it with a clean palette, a clean canvas. And think of the first time when you were first married and doing your first house or buying your first house, and you could have anything you wanted to. And the whole concept of having a place where you could not wait to get back to. You want to go be there, it's enveloping, it's a warm, comforting, it's a place that you just can't stand to be away from. And what if that was your club? What if you had a facility that you couldn't wait to have your kids come visit you, or your friends from up north, or your friends here? That's what we're looking for, and not just solving the program that has been wonderfully developed, but provided in a way that you can't wait to get back to that space. So that's what we look for in creating the spaces and the functions, and not just creating the solution, but a manner that is exciting and thrilling to share with your friends and family. So this is a blow-up of the kind of amenity area, the club cafe, the proposed pool deck area, and the bathhouse. The main club cafe, what we're trying to do is bring you into a lobby we want to create the drama, but we also want to make it inviting and warm, and someplace that you won't feel out of sorts with, especially in a more casual style. So you come into a lobby, and we have some seating area. There's an aquarium entry, kind of a feature here. I don't think that'll be a sushi bar necessarily. Pick your own squid or something. Could happen. But then we have a bar, and kind of the feature of this bar, again, when you look at the things that are out there, and everybody knows a restaurant that they can't wait, the Bravos, the Brios, where there's indoor, outdoor, and in South Florida, that's such a wonderful experience to be inside, be outside, and have the catalyst for interaction. I mean, that's what club activity is all about, to have this interaction with your members, see and be seen, and do it in a venue that you just can't stand to be away from. We may put some beds over here, I'm not sure. So anyway, enter in through the lobby, restrooms of course, but have a bar. Now this line is the air-conditioned line of construction. And if you notice the general layout of the building, let me go back. You have your lake out up to the north here. You have this wonderful new pool. It's really an interesting kind of, again, a catalyst for interaction. The synergy between members just really is the activities, the club events, the happy hour type elements. But what we've done is, when you see the views that are available, what we tried to do is exploit that in the layout of the building. So no matter where you are, you're getting multiple views to the outside. But as you enter into the bar area, the bar, you'll notice, is pretty much an island, and it's separated by a set of walls. They're called nano walls, which actually fold back. They are doors, and this area becomes basically one big space. It's indoor, outdoor. So you have this viewing your members across the bar, interaction around the outside. So there's room to sit, there's room to stand, and there's support tables around the outside. So let me give you an idea what that looks like. The lobby, maitre d', there's your lunch right sitting on that coral. And as you kind of enter into the bar area, you pass the aquarium. And what we've tried to do is incorporate all the things that make it a full-time venue, meaning it's not just for lunch, it's not just for dinner. You want to go, and there are TVs kind of built into the bar and elements around that it doesn't look like a sports bar, but you have that availability. Wine racks, televisions. There are actually TVs. The lighting on this is kind of tough, but these are TVs built onto the inside of the bar, the upper bar. Again, so when you look at the type of arrangement that creates, you can see the doors are folded back. You have the island bar, seating all the way around. And what's nice about this is no matter where you look, it's pretty to look on the inside, it's pretty to look through the outside. There's a lot of activity going on. The different things that occur, the different seating areas, great place for entertainment, even dancing on the porch. So we came in and we walked around the bar here. Now as we enter in, and what's nice about this, you're looking at a facility that can seat, 210, 220 people. So if you've been in facilities like that, they have a tendency to be slightly cavernous. Well, what we've tried to do is break these elements up so that they are comfortable no matter where you are. So as you enter into the main dining area, the central dining area, past the bar, slightly different character. There's a firewall, seating on either side. And again, what we've tried to do, not just in the construction of the building, but in the furnishings as well, is offer that variety that's fun. Sometimes you feel like you're sitting in a booth. Sometimes you feel soft seating, kind of like those Ralph Lauren cushy seats that you can't get out of, and regular tables. So, and this is a slightly different configuration of timber roof trusses. Again, all these doors open up to the outside, so you're never unaware of the outside and the integration of sitting and dining in nature. So it's one of those surroundings that a lot of clubs don't have this benefit of the visual linkage to the outdoors and the nature, and we really want to exploit that. Again, looking down through the middle of the facility. Pizza oven. This is one of those things that is just a fun thing. And pizza ovens are one of those things that are not just for pizza. There's fish and steaks and so forth. Once you get that 1,000-degree oven going, then it's used for so many different things. But it has been extremely popular in other facilities, and sometime a feature night, outdoor movie and a pizza type of thing. And then as we kind of navigate through the main dining area into the far dining, just to support same type of banquet seating. And just to note that we do, even though we do look at the detail of the ceiling design and so forth, we do integrate acoustical attenuation and all this, so you won't have to come back and deal with sound and acoustical issues. So going out on the porch, you fold back the doors, have soft seating and the combination of seating outside as well. Again, a little different character each side, because the thing that's most fun about a facility like this is the variety that it creates. Variety of seating, the spatial quality of the space is just a fun thing to be able to experience it in different ways. So. The nice thing about this is it's a pretty space no matter where you are, and the location is very conducive to camaraderie and the synergy between members. So that's the main cafe area, and what we're looking at is again creating a combination of spaces. There are upper decks for umbrella tables, soft seating. What we had considered this space is it's a little more intimate. We saw this as possibly being the morning cafe, croissant and coffee availability, because there are walls around here creating privacy, but they're low and they have iron, so you can see people come and go, and it provides really a nice area to greet the morning. As you walk around, of course, we needed areas for sunbathing, but what we've also included is an upper deck, hot tub spa area. We have the filtered sun of the trellis area. We have cabanas incorporated, and there's a waterfall feature. There are lap lanes, and this particular area gives you kind of a beach entry. You've seen that, kind of the walk-in entry that's really nice. It's great for kids playing, and they can sit in the water. It becomes kind of almost a waiting shelf. You've seen that a lot in private homes as well. The access to the pool baths are right here in the corner. And then we've incorporated kind of a destination barbecue where that can be used for different events, but it's designed into it so it can be used by members or staff as an additional feature. So that gives you kind of a shot from if I was hovering over the tennis court. If I was a lob, this is what you'd see. So you have kind of the morning area, the fire pit area, soft seating area. Again, the variety is really what is so enhancing to a space that is used in different ways. Have a little umbrella so kids can get out of the sun if they need to. There's the beach entry, lap lanes, the barbecue area over to the right here. And again, right to my left, which you just off the screen, this is all lake. So it's really going to be stunning. There's going to be a series of focal points, really kind of no matter where you are, the building itself, the landscaping, the water feature. Kind of looking the other way. You'll notice the cabanas and the trellis area for the filtered sun and so forth. And we have a pretty good buffer then between the pool area and the tennis facility itself. It's just going to be cool. I mean, it's going to be really cool. That is an architectural term just entered in the really cool. So then coming around the backside, the tennis courts, you're seeing the edge of the tennis court here, the bathhouse. And in the bathhouse, it is the tail end of the tennis center. So what you're getting is access down the north here. You have day lockers, bathroom vanities, toilet facilities, a couple of showers. That's the same on men's and women's. But then on the backside, here's this is actually the overlook. And what's nice about this is the roof comes out to here, and what you have is you have a step in the viewing deck. So the lower level, this lower level, is about 18 inches below the upper level. Now this row of seats will be the high top tables. This row of seats will be the regular tables, and then you step down and have regular tables. So you have really kind of 3 tiers of seating. And then the tennis restroom access is through this corridor here. And again, we have day lockers, and they're separate lockers than the pool. And we've tried to keep this area as the dry tennis restroom area, but if there's an event and league play and so forth, they can extend into the other areas, of course, because it's all connected. But then we have a central area for the showers. There is food preparation staging at the back side of the tennis portion of the building, meeting, storage, inventory, and then the main tennis pro shop, which is about twice the size of what's there just for the retail space and gets poor Steve out of the closet that he's in. Although he likes the closet, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, so that's the main building. This gives you a kind of a relationship. You see the pool and the first tennis court. This is the edge of the tennis bathhouse building. And now you'll notice one thing here. Her grip is all wrong. Tendinitis, I'm telling you. Okay. All right, so you'll notice the high top tables, the lower top tables, the regular tables, and then the step down. So it's really nice for the event, the Monday night exhibition. I'm thinking it should be called Federer and Fries or Rafa and Raviolis or something like that. I'm not sure. We do also have kind of a bleacher set up in the back, kind of a classic viewing from the end type of thing. There's 2 levels of viewing there, and it really makes for a nice exhibition court. There's plenty of people. It'll seat about 150 plus this area. So we're trying to accommodate kind of the current lifestyle. And the one thing that I've always said is when we do redesign clubhouses, and we do it a lot, we design for the personality of the club. And what we've done here and the programming that's gone into this, this does react specifically to your members. So again, I think your board's done an excellent job of the programming. So this is the view from the front of the parking lot. So let me turn this back over to Steve, and he'll take you through the second phase.
Thank you, David. How'd you like to work with him for 2 years? He gets paid, too. So, as we've looked at this, we've broken this down essentially into 2 phases. We've run through phase 1, and we'll come back and talk about timing. We'll also talk about money. But I just want to show you the second phase. The second phase concerns the Wellness Fitness Community Center. We had a parking deck issue. The Collier County has parking codes, and in order to build a facility, what we came up with is to actually take, and we've designed a building that's approximately 26,000 square feet for all of those uses, not just dedicated to fitness, and we've raised it 14 feet in the air. And the reason for that is that the building supports all the parking that goes into the building itself. Otherwise, we were getting involved with, we were just land constrained. The other piece is we get 2 additional tennis courts for a total of 10. Another reason it's phase 2 is in the end of the turnover agreement, we agreed with Hallstatt to keep the sales center in its current location, which is right where these 2 tennis courts are, until May 1st of 16. So we'll come back to timing, but one other thing that you're going to see, if we place a fitness wellness community building in this location, that's exactly where the current playground is. So we've moved the playground over to where this chipping area currently is. And we'll talk about golf in a minute, but this location may or may not stay. But you'll see in a video that we'd like to show you where the playground was relocated with the bocce ball courts and a snack house. So we took all Dave's slides, and through the magic of Teddy Graham, and the work of some other board members, we've put together a little video to try and connect the dots. Oops, too soon. This is an artist's rendering of what that community building might look like. So everything underneath is parking, and on the second floor would be all the fitness space, meeting space, and community space. This is the bocce ball courts where they had been proposed to move, along with the snack house and the playground area. Now the video. Maybe. We were supposed to have a little music. We're walking into the bar area. Guess our technology isn't as good as we thought. I actually can see people on television. Past the pizza kitchen into the dining room, another dining room. So go back up out of the pool area over to the tennis area. We really tried to make an effort to create a wall situation here and buffer for the tennis courts. Come back out and look at the entrance to the Tennis Pro Shop around the community building, Community Wellness Fitness building. And then turn back over to the area where the current chipping green is, where the playground was proposed to be relocated. It was really a lot better with music. Apologize for that. Dave, you should have come up and sung. I mean, okay, let's talk about golf for a minute. I'm sure you've all, or if you haven't seen the email, we had 16 meetings for all the members to come as we kind of went through this process to answer questions and at least give you, to peel back the cover a little bit and show you what we were going to talk about. And the Palm Golf Course, the first hole, the short game practice area that had been proposed, and then the bifurcation of hole 17 has just been totally taken off the table. It is not, we're going to go back and take a look at it. We still need a short game area somewhere. Don't have any good suggestion right now. We're going to put some groups together and study it. Before anything's done, we are not going to change any of the golf courses, and we will come back and chat with you again before we do anything with a practice area. So that is off the table. What we would like to do, though, is extend the East Range. The yellow area that you see is a 40-yard extension of the existing south end of the East Range down by the golf maintenance facility. The surface level of it will be the same as the surface level of the existing range. It gets dirt, irrigation, sodded, and it will allow us to have a double-ended range for all of our outings or times when we have two shotguns or we're using both courses. This yellow or orange square is a air-conditioned 4-bay training and fitting facility. Look similar to this. We've got 4 training bays with a kind of a garage door type opening in the front, so we can leave our TrackMen, all the equipment out there. It's safe. We don't have to bring it in and out. And as they fit clubs or they have all their club storage, we'll have everything there for your convenience, as well as ladies and men's restroom. We're also proposing over on the estuary side that we do a 2-bay facility at the end of the range. This is the current estuary clubhouse, and this is the south end of that range. Come down this long cart path. It would be a 2-bay training and fitting facility, again with restrooms. That would be that is the piece of golf that we would like to keep. We want to talk about project timing. As you know, the voting is closed on February 3rd. What we would propose to do is on May 1, we are prepared to begin demolition of the existing east side kitchen and demolition of the pool patio area, as well as the pool area. The east side would be out of food service for May, June, and July of 2015. We would use the estuary during that time. But we have a 90-day completion date in order to restore this kitchen back to service. And when this kitchen would then be restored back to service, we would begin work on the kitchen and facilities over on the west clubhouse at the estuary. The tennis facility would be moved, and its entire tennis operation would be moved off-site to Naples Bath and Tennis, effective May 1 of 15. And the new tennis facility and all 8 courts will be back open, ready for business in December of 2015. So it would be complete and ready to go. The only thing that would not be done are these 2 courts, because that's where the sales center is. The pool cafe and the pool would be completed January of 2016. So all of the disruption, everything that would happen to the club would be done from the months of May 2015 through January of 2016. At that point in time, we'd step back and take a look. And before we would begin to even consider going ahead with phase 2, the board wants to make sure that we have several green lights. First, that we completed the projects in phase 1 on time, on budget, and on schedule. The second is that that the finances of the club are such that we're not compromising our existing operations and that we're working on budget as we have budgeted. The third is that we're selling memberships, new memberships per our budgets, and that we are paying Hallstatt on a regular basis as proposed. If we're doing all of those three things, then the board would consider beginning work on this building in May. In the event any of those items that I mentioned aren't green lights, even amber lights, we're just going to table it for a year until everything gets back square. Costs. The entire program, and this is in your book that you'll get, $27 million. There have been a couple of requests that we've pulled out. The pool itself is $650,000. And the short game facilities, and which is the redo of Palm 1 and 17, were $1 million. Actually, just about $30,000 less than that. All the rest of the costs are there. We have taken drawings through the design development phase of every structure with the exception of the fitness community building. And what that means is that we're about 40% through drawings, and we've had all of the trades, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, everybody look at them. So our costs are within 5–6% of where we think that they should finish. We've got a really firm grip on that. Phase 1 itself is about $17,800,000. The total project's proposed at $27,340,000. At this point, I'd like to turn the program over to Dave Seymour. We'd like to talk to you about the impact on operating costs. David?
Thanks, Steve. I'll take your mic and your pointer. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to have the opportunity to speak with you today. Jim's going to join me. As we've been evaluating and considering feedback from the various outreach meetings and sessions with members, it's a couple themes keep coming through, one of which is where do we stand with food and beverage, and if we have all these facilities and sell more meals, are we going to generate more losses? I'm going to have Jim talk a little bit about that. And then I want to talk about how the operating finances of the club are actually looked at and managed, and how we're preparing for dealing with changes in the cost structure going forward. So you can have the mic. I thought you were mic'd.
All right, and then one more slide. All right, McGladrey is an accounting company. They're here today to do the vote count. But with the 150 or 160 clubs in this area and more like 600 in the state of Florida, the benchmarking in clubs is something that most of the clubs participate, including Gray Oaks. And McGladrey can compare clubs by size, by revenue, by food and beverage revenue, by location, by almost any parameter that you would like to compare. So the slide that's up on top, the left-hand column is the state of Florida, and the average club in the state of Florida has 780 members. The middle column is a column that McGladrey does for clubs that are between 900 members and 990, and that's the column that Gray Oaks falls into. We have approximately 950 active members. So we thought those were three good comparisons, and I think some of the numbers might surprise you by some of the information that I've heard in the last couple months. Our food and beverage revenue is just a smidge under $3 million. So we're at 2.975. Clubs our size, that's a pretty similar number in the state, which is about 3.1. The average club in the state of Florida does 1.9 million in food and beverage. The subsidy at Gray Oaks, our food and beverage subsidy is $1,845. For the average club in the state that has $1,845,000. In the state of Florida, clubs our size, their subsidy is $2.765 million. So we're almost $1 million better than average clubs our size that do similar revenue than we do. The subsidy per member at a 900-member club in the state of Florida on average is $2,800 out of your dues. At Gray Oaks, that's 1.8 million, and that represents about 15% of your dues. So it's 15% of your dues subsidize our food and beverage operation. In the state of Florida, that number is 16% on average, and you can see the clubs our size in the middle, it's substantially more than that. It's 23%. The subsidy per dollar, clubs measure, one of the ratios they look at is expense ratios, and in the state of Florida, the average is $1.52. We're at $1.62, and clubs comparable in size to us are at $1.87. Our food and beverage operation here at the club has grown tremendously. A little over 12 years ago, we took in $1.6 million, and we lost $1.8 million. And I'm going to say that again. In 2002, when the estuary opened up that first year, we took in $1.6 million, and we lost $1.8 million. Today, you fast forward today, we take in about $3 million, and we lose $1.8 million. We've improved the food and beverage operation by $1.6 million in the last 10 years. So one of the things that you hear people say is that every dollar that you increase your food and beverage operation, you lose money on, and you lose more money on. That is generally true in the club business, but at Gray Oaks in the last 10 years, we've been able to manage that growth as we go and hold our costs and our ratios down. So with that, I'll turn it back over to David.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, one of the most important parts of this in the $1.62 is many of our food and beverage costs with multiple clubhouses and multiple facilities, many of the costs that if you've been in the restaurant business might say we should have more variable costs, better ability to manage that. A lot of our costs behave in a fixed or semi-fixed manner, and so our challenge to management has been, as we've continued to grow our food and beverage revenue, we want the scale benefit to show up in this ratio, that we're absorbing those fixed costs over a broader range of activity, and that we don't want to see leakage in that because we're spending more on direct costs such as food and so forth. So there's a lot of elements to balance this and to make sure we stay on track, and that it really does lead to, sorry, I got a point over here I was told. All right, when we look at the future, this concept here at the bottom, net operating costs, this may not be a phrase you've been taught to be familiar with in Gray Oaks financials, and actually it's not something that's going to jump out at you with the numbers that have been, the first quarter information that's been posted today, which I think you'll find useful, but it's a really important concept. When we sit down with management, and I chair the finance committee, and starting in fiscal 2012, we challenge management. We are running this club right now with the owner subsidy at a level that's not sustainable if we don't have that subsidy. We need to take, over the next 3 years, $600,000 a year incremental out of the net operating costs of the club. So what are net operating costs? Well, it's the guest fees, trail fees, food and beverage revenues, lesson fees, all those sorts of things are the revenue that go to offset the costs we incur. What are the costs? They're payroll costs, they're all the incidental costs of running this business other than depreciation. Because depreciation is not funded by our operating dues, has never been funded by operating dues, and therefore we are having this discussion about funding capital improvements because we've never funded depreciation. But that's structurally how the club was designed. When you look at the audited financial statements that were posted, I provided a bit of a commentary to try to explain some of the nuances between what you hear about here, on more the cash basis of running the club, and the GAAP, the audited basis of some of the measurements that take place. So this net operating cost is a critical metric. Management provides analysis every month to the finance committee and the board about the net operating cost position, how it is shifting, what additional impact management can have to maintain it at a particular point. One of the things we started in 2012 was a comprehensive sensitivity analysis of our membership levels and our cost structure. And I'm going to put a couple sheets up in a minute to explain that. You are not expected to read them. Please don't try. You'll probably go blind if you try to read them. But there's some colors on them that will help you get a sense of what I'm talking about. But originally we looked at if our membership level was at 550 golf and 180 sport members, and all the way up to 850 golf and a fixed number of sports members at the time. We thought we needed to understand what the ramifications and the risk to members' operating dues, as well as what kind of painful cuts we might have to make. So rather than wait till we were confronted with that, we started this program. The critical element of the program was we were targeting, our golf membership was stuck at about 684 members for 2 or 3 years as the economy was starting to work its way out of the recession. That's the target rate that membership level, 684 golf and 190 approximately sport members. We asked management, we need to size the club for that, assuming that's where we're going to be operating. But as Jerry reported, golf membership, dues-paying golf memberships around 725 today, and sports over 200. And so those are good things. And so what we've done from the sensitivity analysis, and again, please don't try to read it. Yeah, so this goes back to the first year after turnover when we had the subsidy and subsidy. Interestingly enough, these 2 years with the owner subsidy were yellow because they were going to lose money at the current run rates. And these 2 were red because they're going to lose a lot of money at the then current run rates. So I don't have the 684 up here anymore because we've grown out of that. But yellow means that there's risk still, things to manage in the net operating cost structure. Management does a very effective job at evaluating the cost structure, looking at the ramification of our new facilities, trying to understand what's going to happen with property taxes, utilities, and things like that. And the Finance Committee continues to press them to really be creative and aggressive at how we do this. So all these, this takes us out to 2020 of assuming 210 sport members, the current approximately 725 golf members. But this assumes the sport members would be the constant. And what this one does is we know from the Moorings Park at Gray Oaks, there will be 96 new non-equity sports members joining the club who will be paying the full sports dues. That's approximately $750,000. Now, some of our good friends in the audience are planning to move there, so we'll have a bit of a haircut from their current golf dues. So if you think in terms of the phasing of that, even to say instead of 210, it's going to, 245 golf members. Sport members. That turns around the forecast for fiscal 2016, because there wasn't going to be an owner subsidy that year anyway. that turns that around to clearly clearing, I can't read that, but it's more than break even, so that got green. And as you go out, assuming some modest increase in golf membership, along with that, continued growth in the sport, not only in the Moorings Park, but also the effect of community membership on the east side. So we're very confident that our revenues will continue to grow without changing the operating dues structure that we put into place in the turnover agreement. And from a cost element standpoint, I mean, I've forecast these costs far beyond what I think any impact of the capital improvement plan would really have at a aggregate year for the next 5 years. It's not our experience, but it could happen, and there will be unknowns that will occur. And my commitment to you is we will stay all over this together with management and make sure that the operating costs don't generate a surprise. So with that, I'll turn it back to Jerry.
I think I know what you said. I have a lot of confidence in David. It's a good thing. All right, so let's talk about how we're going to pay for that $27 million that Steve talked about. What are our opportunities? Well, most clubs use joining fees, or for us, the $150,000, $175,000 joining fee. That's the primary. A lot of clubs that went bankrupt, that had to recapitalize, that's how they continued to fund their capital. Royal Poinciana, they collect $5 million a year based on their turnover. We don't have that luxury because we still have equity. You and I still have equity. So if a member did join, we got to pay out 80 or 90% of that joining fee to the person that left. So we actually can book $15,000 or up to $30,000 of capital, where our competitors would book $100,000. So that's not a real good opportunity for funding the proposed $27 million. We could talk about equity reduction, and many have talked to us in the board about, gee, I'd be willing to give up my equity if I don't have to pay any cash. Unfortunately, that's an individual responsibility. The board or collectively the members cannot vote your equity away. You have 80 or 90% equity, and it's your decision that you keep it, and you probably want it. The problem with it, even if you did, there's no cash. There's no cash for us to start these projects and pay for these projects. We only get the benefit of that is when you leave. So that, too, was not a great opportunity. Assessment. I know that was when we first started talking about this, people said, oh man, here comes the assessment. Well, that's something the board did not consider. One thing is that we didn't think that the membership was willing or accepting one large payment where they write a check. That did not seem to be acceptable. The other part about it that wasn't fair is that if you and I wrote a check for $20,000 and we made all these improvements, a new member comes in a year from now, he gets the benefit and he didn't pay a dime. That doesn't seem fair to the board. The other thing was that assessment, if you look at the bylaws, does not pertain to all members. So not all members, non-equity members, would not be subject to that assessment. So it's a little bit limiting the board's thought in terms of that opportunity to pay for these assessments. So our recommendation to you is bank financing. It's a great time. We had a discussion this morning about the 10-year bill and what that's worth. It's a great time to borrow money, and that's what we're suggesting. We think that based on our formulas, and I tell you, this board has worked tirelessly forecasting a lot of these opportunities, that it looks like we could amortize what we would need to borrow over 10 years. So, if we borrowed the money, how would we amortize the debt? Well, we got a couple sources of that. The first thought is the joining fees. Now, we talked about the fact that we only get 10 or 20% back from a replacement membership. But once we pay off Halstead, if you remember, we had 88 memberships. Half of those basically would go to pay off Halstead. The other half we would have in our pocket to use to sell to new members. and we would be able to book that joining fee for those additional 44 members. Over the period of time, whether it be, we forecasted a lot of different ways, there's potential of $8 million that those additional memberships could accrue for paying off the bank financing. The other thought would be the new member replacement, the 10 and 20% that we put in our pocket from the replacement. Member comes in at $150, we pay a replacement $135, we have $15,000. We could keep that in the bank. We said, well, we could use that to pay off part of the bank financing. The board's decision that is not necessarily the best idea. What we'd recommend is that we take that residual and actually start creating a reserve. We do not have a reserve. How we ever got to this point, I'm not going to try to explain it because I don't know. But we don't have a reserve in this club, and we need to build one, and the replacement, the residual from that replacement is a good way to do it, and we anticipate and forecast that we could accumulate a $5 million reserve in 10 years over that period of time. You're currently paying a capital dues component of your dues, $11.50 or $5.20, depending whether you're golf or sport. That has been in place since the turnover, and the reason for that is there was an anticipation of that turnover board with Jerry Myers with the good insight to say, when we took over this club, there's a lot of assets that we know we're going to have to be replaced. So we called in Johnson Engineering, and we had them do a complete assessment of all the assets of this club and said, let's schedule it out into 2020, try to anticipate the life of those assets, and let's start collecting money every year so that we can replace those assets as they need to be replaced. That's a program we need to continue. We don't need to use that money to pay for the capital because that's essential. And what does that go to play? It goes, that asset replacement could be a truck, could be a chair, and it could be regrassing the fairways. All of those have been scheduled in the future to be paid for by that $1,150 or $500. That we don't think should be touched or used for the capital program. So where does that leave us? Well, unfortunately, the answer is simple. We have to increase the capital dues. That's how we start to accumulate the money over a period of time to pay and to amortize the debt that we need. Why is that a good idea? From the board standpoint, it's perfect because it's pay as you go. If you're a member and you're a dues-paying member, you pay it while you're here. You leave, you don't pay it anymore. If you join the club tomorrow, you start paying, and you pay for the period of time that you're here. So it's pay as you go. There's no big number, no big check to be written. All participate. If you're a dues-paying member of the club, you pay for this increased dues. There's no major cash requirement. So we think that's fair. So what are we proposing? We're proposing an increase in incremental capital dues for all dues-paying members. That includes everybody. Paid annually April 1st. Annually April 1st. And the incremental cost to be $3,000 for golf members, $1,350 for sport members, and the term that incremental dues would be in effect until we amortize the loan. And I say that because there are a lot of variables in terms of the time in which to pay off that loan. We've scheduled it a lot of different ways, and it could be more than 10 years, could be less than 10 years. So where does that project out? Well, that basically says that from the Halstead joining fees of the 44 memberships, we potentially have another $8 million. And we're projecting on our schedules, and I got to kind of caveat this, that we would collect over 10 years $2.4 million for a total of $24 million over 10 years. Now that number of 2.4 is predicated on the number of dues-paying golf members and dues-paying sport members. And I have to tell you, Mr. Iarossi and Mr. Dayton went through this a lot of ways. It's a very conservative forecast of the dues-paying members. It actually projects a loss in members from where we are today but it's still a conservative number that we think that 2.4 a year is a very reasonable number that can be reached to pay for that debt. So the question is, well, how does that compare? You add another $3,000 a year to our dues, you're going to make us uncompetitive. Well, here are the dues that exist that we found today in terms of their member dues and their capital dues. We are not the cheapest, but we're not the most expensive either, even after the additional $3,000. You can see that some have capital fees much larger, dues much larger than ours, but overall, we're less than Mediterranean, less than Bay Colony. Is that fair? We think that the quality of this club and what we're doing still keeps us in a very competitive situation. So let me jump ahead. What's the voting process? Where do we go from here now that you heard the facts? What we're asking you to do, the ballot that you're going to pick up as you leave today, is to approve, to implement all the recommended improvements that Steve and Dave have presented, which tables, as he said earlier, the Palm Golf Course, short game area, an agreement to obtain long-term financing, and an acceptance in the increase in capital dues. That's the ballot that we're asking you to vote on. The parameters are there is one ballot per dues-paying membership. When you sign your ballot, it's important that you put your member number on it, because that will be the controlling number in terms of ballot. If you don't have your member number on it, we can't count the ballot. One per dues-paying member. The tally count, which goes in the original bylaws, the golf member is tallied at 3 votes per vote, and the sport member 1. The tallies will be tallied by McGladrey Auditing Company. Sherry Dodd is behind us today. She's here from McGladrey. All the ballots are in an envelope addressed to McGladrey. You can mail it back to McGladrey yourself. We'll have a box here where you can put your ballot in. We'll deliver it to McGladrey. They will do the tabulation. It will not be done by the board or staff. The final tally is you need to get your ballots in by February 3rd. That will be the final date. And we're looking for a simple majority of your ballot to support this project. Okay, now there's Jim and Dave tried to answer some questions that we knew that you'd have relative to food and beverage, questions you've had relative to operating cost. There are a couple others that I'd like to just touch on before we excuse. Why did we not segregate the projects for approval and for construction? We've heard this. Let me first start with why we didn't segregate these elements of the project for approval separately. Number one, we were convinced that if we did that, there'd be significant bias in terms of who voted for what. If you're not a tennis player, you're probably not going to vote for a $2 million tennis program. And if you're not involved in fitness, you may not support a fitness program. If you live on the East Campus versus the West Campus, you may not think that the estuary needs to be redone. And the other thing that's important is a new member doesn't get a vote. Those are the people who really are looking at what we're proposing and saying, that's really what I need. So we thought breaking it down would be a little bit biased. And the other part of it is that a lot of the projects are interrelated. Dave Humphrey took you through how the club cafe and the pool and the tennis are all part of a deconstruction, reconstruction process. So it's hard to say, well, I want to just vote on the pool, because it's all interrelated. So if you don't package that together, you're going to vote on the estuary separately or the golf course separately. It didn't make sense to break it down in any meaningful way that would be fair for the future. And I got to tell you, the board looks at it maybe a little different. They're saying that you elected us to look for the best interests of this club going forward. What's going to make us the strongest, the most vital? And we're saying all of those things together are what is important. Then the question, well, why not segregate the projects? Well, as Steve explained to you, it's already in 2 phases. And he's already described the fact that we're going to do the first phase, take a look, make sure we're on board, and then do the second phase. So it's already phased to some degree. The other thing is, we're not so sure that all members want to go through many, many years of construction and always keeping this club disrupted in terms of waiting and another year, another project, another year, another project. And finally, it was very clear to me when we first had these discussions, let's get it done so that I can enjoy it. I want to enjoy it. If I'm going to pay for it, I want to enjoy it. So that's why we said, let's approve them all, and let's build them as fast as we can in some reasonable fiduciary way. Next question. Why do sports pay $1,350 and golf members pay $3,000? Well, let me try to take you through what we think is very good rationale as to why that exists. These amenities, we don't charge people based on their usage. That's not how the club is structured in terms of, it's not a pay-as-you-go tennis program or anything else. It's not based on usage. Today, the split between $3,000 and $1,350 is the same split that's in the bylaws for the capital dues that you're paying now, the $1,150, $520. That also is 45%. It reflects almost the same percent of your dues in terms of the $1,350 relative to $7,000 and the $3,000 relative to $15,000. So that percentage is pretty much the same. We're also very worried. We had a concerted effort a couple years ago to have you approve community membership where everyone who moves into this club had to be at least a sport member of the club. We think that we have a little bit of credibility if we go back and say, okay, now we got you, and we're going to jam you with another $3,000. We think that's a little bit too much. We also have to be careful that in sport memberships, and golf members have to understand that sport memberships are important to us because they're incremental revenue, they're incremental dues. We want to be able to be in a position to be attractive for sport memberships, not to scare people away on a number that they think is not competitive. And finally, and I guess the most important thing we'd say is that golf members own 95% of the equity of this club. If there's anybody that wants to preserve the equity of the club in terms of paying for improvements to keep and maintain that membership value, we think it's the golf members. So we think that what we're proposing of $3,000 and $1,350 is the fair number and one that makes sense and one that we think is competitive. The other question is, well, what happens, we've heard this go, what happens if it doesn't pass in terms of a majority? We'll probably stop the planning activity as it exists today. We'll then have to, the board is committed. There are things that need to get done. We'll probably have to do the kitchens to proceed. We'll try to do it financed internally with what we have, but we can't guarantee you that we wouldn't have to have some kind of a dues increase anyway. So that's the plan. Let me conclude before we go out, and let me just say before we have questions and comments. You know, the board's been working on this project, as I said, for 2 years. We got our heart and soul in it. We think what we're recommending is the best thing for this club, for its health and its vitality. We hope that you'd look through the lens that we look through. We've all got our own issues, whether we're a sport member or we're on the other side, or we don't like fitness or we do. We'd ask you to look through a lens that says, what is the best thing for this club? Long term, what makes us competitive? What keeps us the best of the best? Because that's the whole package. It's not just one of the things that you or I may be interested in individually. We don't think voting no is an option. We don't think voting no is an option. We got too much invested. We need to look forward to the future. We need to hope that we continue to be the best of the best. And we urge you, when you pick up your ballot, that you vote yes. My associates and I will try to take your comments and questions. There's a microphone in the back. Amanda, do you have a microphone? So just raise your hand and...
Have them repeat, if you can repeat the question to it when they ask it, just so we get all that.
He went out and got a beer.
You got to get a microphone to ask a question.
Who's got a question?
Let me just say, if you're leaving, if you go out to the porte cochere, you'll notice that all the boards are up for your review. And we thought it was important. We're hosting some beer and some wine, so enjoy yourself. Question.
Jerry, could you please go back to the...
I just don't know if he's called over here.
Quiet, please. Carl Spaulding, could you go back to the chart, or just let's talk about the chart, where you were going to raise $32 million? Thank you.